2003. Before we continue with today's video, I have to make a slight correction to part 2. We went over how Kaiba got the Paladin of White Dragon in Advent of Union, which he used in the Waking the Dragons arc. The thing is, Joey also had a ritual, the Night of Dark Dragon, in this same arc. But this card wasn't printed despite them having the same effect and stat line in the anime. This is why I say there must be a real-life Seto Kaiba running Konami, because why else would you print one but not the other? We continue to not see much of Joey in the year 2003, as the game had switched focus for quite some time to Merrick, Bakura, and Ishizu. It even started introducing new archetypes such as Gravekeepers and the chest-based Archfiends. While some Joey cards would get reprints, and of course downgraded rarities in both the OCG and TCG, like the super rare Black Skull in Tournament Pack 3. Because he didn't use an expansive lineup of monsters, the OCG had more reprints than most collectors would have wanted, so it was really beating a dead horse. That being said, we'll skip ahead to March. On the 20th, the video game Duel Monsters 8 Great Evil God of Destruction hit store shelves with 4 promo cards. They were Satellite Cannon, Sage of Stone, Knight's Title, and Dark Magician Knight. English copies of Retrospective Destruction would have the same promos minus the Satellite Cannon. So why am I talking about all these Yugi Moto cards? Because Knight's Title was a card in Joey's deck. It originally just changed a spellcaster to a warrior type, but the effect was changed so that it only acts as Dark Magician support. Because of this, in the 2014 North America qualifiers, this was placed in Yugi's deck even though he technically never owned it in the first place. While I don't feel like this was Kaiba's propaganda and more so Yugi stealing a card, it's still disrespect on Joey, so I have to mention it here. North America also released a double pack for Sacred Cards and Retrospective of Destruction that reduced the promo count down to 2 and decreased the rarity of both cards. But at least Knight's Title made the cut. March 30th was where the TCG finally got the starter deck Joey product. Although it strangely had Duelist Kingdom advertising and focus, even though the English dub was well into the Battle City arc, it did make improvements from the OCG version. For starters, Landstar was given its rightful common, whereas Red Eyes was promoted to being an ultra rare as it should. Although the power of TCG sealed decks are much weaker than the OCG counterparts, especially at this point, Joey still came with the generic Malevolent Nuzzler card to give a massive boost to your monsters. Scapegoat and Penguin Soldier got foil upgrades here, and cards like Battle Warrior were omitted from this version. Although there are also a plethora of downsides. Despite being a super in the recently released Pharaoh's Servant, Gearfried was downgraded to a common here. The Command Knight and Luminous Soldier monsters that gave Joey and Warrior fans the ability to push back against other well-supported themes were scrapped completely, along with many other cards. Not just his Battle City cards, but Duelist Kingdom as well. The Dice cards, Copycat, Alligator Sword and its fusion, Panther Warrior, Rocket Warrior, and many more cards that were completely acceptable power levels for the TCG card pool were not only removed from the product, but were banished several years into the future. The only way to obtain these cards would be through different dual terminal machines, tin and video game promos, tournament, champion, and world championship packs, or booster packs and jump promos that would release in entirely different generations of the game. Joey's cards were already underpowered compared to what his rivals had, but it was foul to make the TCG wait as far as 2011 or later for level 4 or lower monsters that didn't even make huge wave in their OCG debuts. To top it off, the Joey starter deck was worse than the Pegasus one, who came with Hane, Man-Eater Bug, Relinquished for Ritual fans, the Toon Blue Eyes and Summon Skull for either the Toon fans or the people who couldn't pull the original versions, and Graceful Charity on top of all other stable spells and traps that came in the Joey box. All without losing a spot to Fake Trap. This would also be the only Joey themed deck we would ever receive again, even with all the Duel Monsters nostalgia pandering that would take place over the next 2 decades. But at least they remembered to print the Joey deck, so he didn't have to wait 6 years like Merrick did. Following this epic international flop was the limited edition returning March 8th for its 5th rendition. Still focusing only on 2 characters this time, Joey was snubbed for Kaiba to pair with the Yugi pack, where they not only got more rare Battle City cards, but the Kaiba pack included the reveal of Victory Dragon, who could be used to quickly run through best of 3 games in tournament play. Its effect was powerful enough to eventually give it a worldwide life sentence, as well as serving as the model for future prize cards that spanned multiple generations. As a spoiler alert, apart from one pack in the future, Joey would go on to never see representation in limited edition again. Speaking of snubbing Joey, although he was on the cover for the foreign copies of Stairway to the Destined Duel, his Salamandra was once again a game-exclusive promo, but this time only for the European copies. He had no representation in the American promos. 2003 also brought us our second official piece of Blue Eye support in Ancient Sanctuary with the Burst Stream of Destruction. TCG players probably remember it being released along with the Infernal Fire Blast and Dark Magic Attack, but in Asia those 2 wouldn't be printed until a year from now, allowing Blue Eyes to reign supreme with its new signature attack spell. The Ancient Sanctuary was also the debut of Enemy Controller, a very versatile spell that would be useful for the rest of time, as even in the 2020s it's seen tournament play, and it would receive a bump from super to ultra rare when the set drops in the TCG. April 3rd marked the end of any chance that Joey or even Warrior decks in the OCG would have it viability when Controller of Chaos crash landed with the 2 behemoths of banishment, Envoy of the Beginning and Envoy of the End. These cards were not only the birth of the Chaos strategy that still lingers in the modern day, but even all the way up to the 2020s, these monsters were so dominant and treasured that they've received erratas and retrains to return their image to relevance. July 17th. The Chaos strategy would only be amplified in July when Invader of Darkness would provide duelists with an upgrade to Yugi's ace, the Dark Magician of Chaos, and the Dimension Fusion spell that would later feature in Kaiba's deck. This spell would shake up the banish mechanic like never thought possible. Joey's Scapegoat would also get a retrain with Stray Lambs, summoning 2 tokens that can actually be used for tribute summoning on your next turn. But it's not a quick play. No one plays this. Shifting over to the TCG, Pharaonic Guardian came out on July 18 and gave both Joey and Kaiba a debut here. For Joey, we in the West saw the release of Question, albeit downgraded from Secret to Ultra. This saw a bit of play only in the sense that players were attempting to create problems in game state and threatened to win by rule sharking the opponent until we just kept our graveyard organized and made it impossible to cheat out a win. Meanwhile, Kaiba got Ring of Destruction. While this card was also used in unsportsmanlike conduct that greatly influenced it being limited just 1 month later, it was a card of outstanding strength that served as monster removal and burn damage during any phase of either player's turn. For the sake of a healthy game, it could not afford to be allowed at more than 1 copy. August would see a second Joey structure deck for the OCG exclusively, where the masses had earlier access to Guilford the Lightning, but it hardly brought forth anything the last one didn't already do for you. It did have the introduction of the ultra rare Foolish Burial, who actually had a significant buff from the anime where instead of pulling a card from your deck to the opponent's graveyard, you can put it in your own graveyard instead. I won't pretend that Foolish Burial wasn't a phenomenal card that shaped the way that the game would be designed up till now. So adding that it was one of the only cards that received a buff instead of a nerf makes it a remarkable piece of Yu-Gi-Oh history. But considering not a lot of cards could take advantage of this spell yet, you might have just bought the structure for a cheaper copy of Merrick's Xarion Universe, which was a fantastic dark monster to use in your new Chaos deck. In December, they announced the Structure Deck Deluxe set, where you could receive a copy of Yugi and Joey's new sequel structure decks, one of each Duelist Legacy reprint set to power them up, green and red metallic sleeves, and an ultimate rare Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. You know, in case you play Cyberstein in your Chaos deck. Hey, look, a dark and a light monster. But why would this deluxe set even have this card as a promo, you might ask? Was it just because Kaiba runs Konami and will take every possible chance to humiliate Joey Wheeler? Of course not. It's because this was released alongside Kaiba Volume 2, which saw a return of all the other monsters Joey was never able to beat. The Luster Dragon monsters, a new alt art collectible of XYZ Dragon Cannon, Crush card and the tribe infecting viruses, that Cyberstein fellow I just mentioned, the debut of Shrink, so now you can Crush card even easier than ever before, just like in the anime, and the permabanned, one-sided lockdown Kaiser Coliseum. Well, new year means 2 more Duelist Leagues, so let's see what the TCG gave you. Necro Valley and the goddamn Machine King. Cool. December was also the launch of Dark Crisis, which included the Dark Flare Knight, a fusion of Yugi's Dark Magician and Joey's Flame Swordsman. Dark Flare Knight is a 2200 attack monster that summons the Mirage Knight if it dies in battle. And while Mirage Knight can run over nearly any monster in battle, the moment it engages in combat, it leaves the game forever. Unless, of course, you use Kaiba's Dimension Fuse? Okay, not now. Not to mention, Mirage Knight can't be summoned by other methods. So, all in all, Dark Flare is unfortunately way worse than just making a Dark Paladin who dropped in October. 2004 saw more packs and promo cards unrelated to the characters. Limited Edition 6 and Premium Pack 6 dropped this year, but since it was the end of Duel Monsters Legacy, these were focused exclusively on Yugi to give us some of the cards he used in the ceremonial duel. Where does that leave Joey? Well, the end of 2003 had the video game Power of Chaos, Yugi the Destiny, and this year we received Kaiba the Revenge and Joey the Passion. While all 3 got prismatic alt arts of their signature monsters, TCG Player reveals that the Red Eyes isn't valued as highly as Karibo, let alone the other aces. As for the rest of 2004, Joey went on to be left out of the rest of the new booster packs, reprint packs, Duelist League promos, and Hobby League promos. Even the TCG was going on an absolute tirade with the December Jump promo bringing them Cyberstein, bringing up the power level of their game past what Warriors were capable of, for even though the Ultimate Dragon wasn't in circulation yet, they would have already ushered in the power of the GX era fusions that were right around the corner. Another copy of Cyberstein was put into the hands of 18 of the strongest duelists in America, with it being the prize cards for the first ever Shonen Jump championships throughout 2004 and 5. Not to mention that Dragons had officially taken over worldwide because by January of 05, all territories had the Dragon's Roar structure deck, rivaled only by Zombie Madness. Which, even though it was Camula's deck, it was centered around Kaiba's Vampire Lord. But look at that! A Red Eyes monster on the cover art! Well, Red Eyes Darkness Dragon technically isn't a Joey card, and neither is the Chick. These belong to a new character in GX, Atticus Rhodes, who serves as a big antagonist, is a recurring character, and becomes a significant part of the plot in the final season of the show. But let's put that to the side and evaluate the card just for fun's sake. This is one of the only cards in the game that can special summon itself, and you only need one monster on the field to do so, which is amazing. And it boosts its attack, meaning it gets better the longer the game runs. Now the downsides. Requiring Red Eyes as your tribute is a huge detriment. Black Chick can cheat it out, but it's not likely you draw them together, and Chick is useless if you don't have Red Eyes in your hand. Your hand is even worse if you have Darkness and Chick, but no Red Eyes, so you could get punished for running multiples of either one. Running multiples of Red Eyes is adding bricks to your deck that, unlike Blue Eyes, can't at least be fused for some creature of mass destruction. Finally, Darkness Dragon does have a cool effect, but counting the level 7 monster you need on the field as fodder, you need an additional 5 dragons just to tie with a Blue Eyes. So you'd be playing a deck where you hope your monsters die, but you somehow don't, and that's just not ideal. By 2004, Chaos was also a top tier strategy in the newly born TCG. While this Red Eyes retrain could theoretically fit into the strategy, it would only get weaker over time since you want to banish monsters to summon BLS, Chaos Emperor, or Chaos Sorcerer, so it can't even benefit from being the most supported attribute in the game. You're better off cutting the Red Eye support and making a generic dragon deck with the nice reprint of Kaiba's Luster Dragon in it. The OCG further incentivized playing dragons that rather stay on the field because they included an ultimate rare Victory Dragon as a promo in their new Kaiba and Merrick Deluxe set, all to kick off the GX era. On the note of Chaos decks, you were finally rewarded for playing strong Dark monsters because Flaming Eternity released in November with both a super and ultimate rare copy of the Deck Devastation Virus. The cost might have been more difficult to meet at the time, but it hit the entire rest of the spectrum of monsters in the game by destroying 1500 or weaker attack monsters while still giving you 3 turns of hand knowledge and seeing all of the opponent's set monsters just like its predecessor. Though 2004 did bring Kaiba some bad news, as in September, the dreaded Crush Card Virus was finally moved to limited status for the OCG, restricting its effectiveness for the rest of its time in the sun. This was also where the first bans were ever handed out, hitting Kaiba and Joey's Cyber and Fiber Jars. Not to mention that on the September list, Chaos Emperor, Ring of Destruction, and Victory Dragon would be banned as well. Yet somehow this wasn't the end of Kaiba, as the Blue Eyes White Dragon got another piece of support when the 7 Trials of Glory gave us Kaiba Man as a promo exclusive. Though Kaiba Man had its rival with the Red Eyes Black Chip this year, this technically was Blue Eyes' 4th support because 2004 was when the Pyramid of Light movie came out, and Joey didn't get any love, where both Kaiba and Yugi had new cards added to their deck, one of which was the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon that every kid wanted for their collection. While we're mentioning the Pyramid of Light, the movie pack also had Kaiba's new Return from the Different Dimension, which we all know went on to make one of the strongest decks in history even stronger before finally becoming uber banned. Kaiba Man was also a popular enough of a concept that he would go on to be included in 3 different video games as a character. Joey and his Red Eyes especially just fell into obscurity. Although he did finally get a new promo card in August when his Divine Knight Ishtark finally got printed from the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga. And it was given a decent effect, where it was just a vanilla in the manga. While that was definitely a win, for some reason the TCG didn't get this promo until much later. This one baffles me again, because even by 2005 standards, it wasn't an amazing card by any means, so why not just print it? As an aside, even though 2005 opened with the Blaze of Destruction structure deck to finally give Fire solid ground, Salamandra was not only hard to acquire, but was also long outclassed by other equip spells, so I won't be going back to it anymore. But even in the far future when Warriors became Fire attribute and revolved around equip spells, just giggle to yourself because Salamandra was still awful for those archetypes. Before we leave 2005, we have to mention the June 16th release of Warriors Triumph. This was definitely Joey coded because it not only included the Gearfried monster and Goblin attack force, but a new retrain of Guilford the Lightning called Guilford the Legend, who recovers all equip spells from the graveyard. This was in addition to the return of Command Knight and a new equip, Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. But where did it go wrong? Well, this was a great way for new players to collect cards of a certain theme, but the best warriors from this era were Yugi's Blackluster Soldier and Kaiba's Blade Knight. You could argue that Goblin Attack Force was a good monster at the time too, but I'm pretty confident that it was much phased out by this point. While these structure decks typically left out the greatest cards of the theme so you could be motivated to buy booster packs, this didn't give you enough good stuff to compensate. For example, Gearfried's evolved form is so underwhelming and not worth the summoning condition that I forgot to mention he was finally released a year ago after he was seen in Waking the Dragons. I probably forgot because he was only used in one duel. Warrior decks relied on equip spells, especially pathetically weak monsters like Joey's Hayabusa Knight with only 1000 attack. This deck came with 4 total since Snatch Steal doesn't count for this theme. Phoenix Blade would be banned in the future, but that was because of monsters printed 12 years from now, so it's no different from Joey's legendary sword from the 90s. Murasame and Lightning Blade are great, but not as good as Axe of Despair or United We Stand. And since equip spells stay in your spell and trap card zones, they could have definitely benefited from a mage power, but I guess that's too spellcaster coded to have added here. Structure decks in this era had the same generic spell and traps, so this offers nothing new unless you're just starting out your collection. Even if you are, you might be better off with zombies or dragons. In fact, those first 2 were so successful that they received a deluxe edition where you could get one of each deck with a copy of the Armed Dragon level 7 who could clear the opponent's monsters more than once, and if level ups weren't your thing, the White Horned Dragon V-Jump promo could punish your opponent for using spells by climbing up to 3,700 attack for the cost of a single tribute. And if it dies, hey look, that's another dark for your Chaos deck. I'd like to add here that in August of 2005, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Company partnered with the Make-A-Wish Foundation to create a one-of-a-kind Tyler the Great Warrior, a level 8 warrior with 3,000 attack who could do burn damage every time he destroyed a monster in battle. While it has a fantastic design, it can't be special summoned, meaning even dying children can't convince Konami to make a good warrior if Yugi doesn't play it. At least Dragon Rejuvenation will give you about 10 years or so of playability. 2006. While 2006 had us approaching the end of the GX anime, we saw a surprising amount of Kaiba representation in an era he had nothing to do with. One of which was the appearance of Kaiba Man in the GX anime as a dual spirit, with the Kaiba voice actor reprising their role to give protagonist Jaden Yuki one of the only losses he suffered in the entire franchise, using a small fraction of Kaiba's death.
Jaden! What gives?
Meanwhile, Joey's stuff was donated to a side character that was only relevant a handful of times. At some point in the month of January, North America received the 4th volume of Shonen Jump, where it announced the Reign of the Dragons by giving you guessed it, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon as the promo card, finally allowing you to summon Shining Dragon in the TCG, as well as foreshadowing the TCG release of Dragon's Roar. And if you didn't want a secret rare, or you missed out on the magazine distribution, you could also buy the special edition set Ultimate Edition that also gave you 2 booster packs. Of course, the second Ultimate Edition later in the year would be Dragon Master Knight. That wasn't the only catching up the TCG needed to do. Ancient Lamp was originally one of the limited edition series ultra rares that was later reprinted in the Kaiba structure amongst other things. But it was removed from the TCG version of the structure deck, so they gave it as both the March Jump promo and the February sneak peek of Shadows of Infinity, which didn't even have this card in the set list. Blue Eyes also saw a return in the Duel Master's Guide that gave you another set of the Kaiba and Yugi structure decks. And Kaiba came to bless the Shonen Jump Championships once again with the TCG release of Shrink, which helped keep the rich richer and the poor poorer by allowing anyone who secured a copy the ability to achieve back-to-back wins. Shrink was also distributed in Europe and Oceania via the Pharaoh Tour series of tournaments. And lastly, December 26th was the second round of the McDonald's Yu-Gi-Oh promotion, where you could pick up some vanillas for people new to the game and a couple Jaden cards that were in the now finished first season of the new spin-off anime. But for some reason, La Jin was a rare you could pull, and it was the alt art that was only used for the limited edition series. So that's what Kaiba got this year. But what did Joey get? Well, the Meteor Dragon was included in the second McDonald's promotional campaign. So now, after all this time, you can summon the Meteor Black Dragon. And with new GX cards like Fusion Gate or Future Fusion, it'll be easier than ever for Red Eyes fans to summon their strongest monster. Well, not quite. You see, even if you did get the Meteor Dragon before the campaign ended, the Meteor Black Dragon wasn't added to the game. Mind you, the OCG had this card by 2000, the second year of the Konami version of the game, so its power level was more than acceptable. The Ultimate Master World Championship Tournament 2006 promo set included an ultimate rare copy of the cover cards of the 4 recent structure decks, and Red Eyes Darkness Dragon didn't have to wait anywhere near as long as the original did, probably because this isn't a Joey card, so it gets a pass. But it still isn't a good card. Magical Arm Shield was never released for the TCG during the Duel Monster era, but finally dropped as the only ultra rare in Tournament Pack 8. So, in exchange for performing well at a competitive event, you could be rewarded with pulling a card that was never relevant, and if you just liked collecting character decks, you would have to go buy an actually good deck and pray you got lucky enough to pull this card. Unless you waited 6 months for it to be released as a common in Dinosaur's Rage. Lastly, there were the manga promos of Unity and Yugioh Friendship, but these are atrocious cards that are only neat little collectibles. And that's going to be wrapping up this part of the video. I'd like to take a moment to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.